Hello there. Welcome to the Reddit Reel. Today we are going to be bringing a story from R. Nosleep. Before beginning, please subscribe and turn on your bell notifications. A guest at my hotel requested a demonic symbol on his bed. I should never have made it. Anyone who thinks people are inherently good has not had the pleasure of a career in the hospitality industry. Go ahead. Put in at least 5 years working full-time in a hotel, restaurant, or country club, and see if that worldview holds up. Then, stretch that length of time to 10 years. By then, you're likely well on your way to becoming a jaded cynic of human nature. If you make it to 15 years, then you've observed the same dumbfounding guest behaviors and answered the same atrocious questions so many times that you can no longer tell where your loathing of people ends and your pity for them begins. You'll meet some good people too, but that's usually because they've learned to see the same irritating things in everyone else that you do. I'm the kind of girl who thought she'd seen it all, until the hotel gods intervened and sent me something darker and more horrifying than I'd ever imagined. It all started with a box of rose petals. Men will frequently ask hotels to make the shape of a heart on their bed with rose petals before they check in. They want it to feel romantic for their wives or girlfriends, and they all think it's creative and original. It's not. Everyone does it. But one day, I was asked to arrange roses into a very different kind of shape. It was a pair of concentric circles surrounding an intricate symbol that made no sense to me. Inside the concentric rings was what I can best describe as one large and two small German crosses, topped by 3 arches, and situated above 2 horizontal lines connected at the bottom to 6 small triangles. While I had no idea of it at the time, given what I know now, given how myself and others suffered, I wish I could scrape the image of that symbol from my retinas and forget I had ever seen it at all. Let's back up, though. I said if you make it 15 years in hospitality, then it's already too late for you. I'm on year 16. I started working at a golf course when I was still in high school, even though I didn't, and still don't, golf and knew, and still know, nothing about it. My name is Osprey. My mother had a thing for birds and wanted to name her daughter after one. So, for the 2 years I worked at that country club, I got pretty used to a bunch of wealthy, 60-year-old fat guys calling me Audrey or Aubrey or whatever. At first, I made an effort to smile and correct them, but the next time I'd see them, they'd inevitably forget and go right back to Audrey. Whatever indeed. I switched to hotels mainly because I thought seeing guests who came and went after a few days would be a lot easier than dealing with the same club members every day and pretending to remember and care about them. It kind of is, but I've since learned that hotel guests and their mostly self-created problems are pretty interchangeable, so it feels like you're dealing with the same people every day anyway. I'm now 33, still single, and what's called the guest experience director at a 4-star beach resort in a mid-sized city on the west coast of the United States. The resort, ownership group, management company, and city will all go unnamed. Besides myself, the names of everyone involved in the events there that led to my departure have been changed. I don't really care if I protect most of them or not, but my conscience tells me it's still the right thing to do. And after what happened, I need to listen to it now more than ever. Guest experience director is what 10 years ago hotels would have called front desk manager. You run the department, so you're above doing all the entry-level bitch work, but you're not a real executive yet, so your salary is still crap. Over the last few years, the industry started renaming job titles that already spoke for themselves with bowls of business school buzzword salad. I'm pretty sure this is to make positions sound more attractive to applicants without companies actually having to pay them more. So front desk manager became guest experience director, concierge became local area resource specialist, and pool manager became director of recreation and fun. Ugh. They even sound stupid when you put them on dating apps. Where my story turned strange was with an email forwarded to me from our lead concierge. I'm still using the old titles. It read, "Hey Osprey, just wanted to make sure you got this before the rest of us go on leave for the renovation. Special request from Mr. Kilday, Diamond member, checking in on the 6th. Celebrating an anniversary of some kind. Wants rose petals arranged on bed in this exact shape. Thanks." Julio attached was a reference image of the shape I was supposed to make. 3 arches and 3 German crosses over 2 horizontal lines and 6 triangles, all inside a pair of concentric rings. Something about it looked very cultish. Still, I wasn't concerned. I had done much dumber shit for VIP guests before. A plastic container of 200 rose petals had already been delivered by a florist that morning and was sitting atop a stack of paperwork on the corner of my desk. I could normally get a concierge or front desk agent to do it, but the hotel would be running on a skeleton crew for the next 4-6 months while we underwent a major renovation. Most of our staff had been furloughed until the work was completed. One small wing of the hotel had already been finished, and we were closing and reopening sections to keep at least a few rooms available during the process. It was winter, and while we were in a warm climate, people didn't exactly flock to book rooms at a beach resort from December to February. For now, we only had 96 of our over 500 rooms available, and not even most of those were full. While working monotonous 11 and 12-hour days and leaving around midnight, I had to admit the desolate hallways really did start to feel creepy. I let Kat, the 20-year-old working the front desk by herself for 8 hours, know I was going up to one of our presidential suites to prepare it for Mr. Kilday and that I would be back shortly. Movies and TV would have you believe that hotels all have one honeymoon suite, one penthouse suite, one pineapple suite, etc. And that they're all unique one-offs. That's almost always bullshit. Suites are copied and mirrored around hotels just like standard rooms. Mine has 3 presidentials. No hotel actually calls their biggest suites the penthouse. 7 ocean suites, 8 sunset suites, and 16 seaside suites. Each suite is identical to all the others in its category. Still, the presidentials are pretty huge, bigger than my last 3 apartments combined, so Mr. Kilday was either loaded or had more membership points than he knew what to do with. I entered room 4180, the only presidential suite open. Just a few feet inside the entrance was a giant, black, hard plastic shipping case. It was over 6 feet tall and standing upright on one end. I had seen these plenty of times before, but only with guests attending conventions who needed to ship bulky items. We certainly didn't have a convention going on, and Julio hadn't said anything about the case in his email. I examined it. It was padlocked, and there was no name or shipping label, just a barcode and serial number. It felt extremely heavy when I touched it, easily 100 pounds. I wondered if Mr. Kilday shipped it here ahead of him, but someone would have needed a pallet jack to get it up here, and I had scarcely left the hotel for the past 3 days. I would have known about it. Anyway, I had a big, culty rose petal design to make, so I decided to worry about the black case once I returned to my office. I emptied the rose petals onto the satin white comforter and pulled up the image of the symbol again for reference. I spread the petals across the bed and got to work copying it. I worried I wouldn't have enough petals to make the whole thing, but somehow the amount worked out perfectly. I stepped back and looked at it. Something about it was unsettling to me. If I had come back later and seen the bed surrounded by 4 dozen candles and men wearing black hoods slitting the throat of a goat on the floor, it would have felt appropriate. I took a pic of the bed for proof that I had completed the request. I'd done a heart shape like this for a guest years ago when I was a front desk agent at a different hotel. Once he checked in, the guy wiped the petals off the bed, disposed of them, then complained to my manager that we never made the heart at all and had ruined his anniversary. My manager comped his parking, resort fee, and dinner. I learned the hard way to always keep a record of your work. I got back down to the lobby and saw Kat struggling with a guest on the phone while another stood waiting at the desk in front of her. I walked behind the front desk to help her, and the guest waiting on her had already begun eyeing me. He was 40-ish, about 6'4", tanned, with a perfectly edged beard, and had blonde, slicked-back hair. He wore a fitted, charcoal gray business suit with a matching shirt and crimson tie, and designer sunglasses that transitioned from dark to light indoors. Something about him sent chills down my arms and legs, like the air was several degrees cooler around him. He was the kind of man I might have gotten tongue-tied talking to just 5 years ago. I knew right away who he had to be. Something deep in my marrow told me, call it intuition, call a sixth sense, that this could only be Mr. Kilday. The rose petals suddenly felt like a beautiful but foreboding harbinger of the intense presence now staring at me from behind photochromatic lenses. I can help you right here, sir, I said, attempting to project just the right blend of professionalism and confidence. He walked over to me. I smiled. I thought he was about to smile back, but he didn't. No, he was clearly, worryingly, ominously not smiling. Do you want to explain to me why you won't pick my wife up from the airport? He barked, already bordering on livid. Did we book transportation for you, sir? That kid in valet out front said he can't take the shuttle. I want you to tell me why. I see. Unfortunately, we don't have an airport shuttle, sir. What I usually recommend is... He cut me off. You have an airport shuttle. I think there has been a miscommunication. We have a local area shuttle. It runs within a 5-mile radius of the hotel, but not as far as the airport. It says you do on your website. I looked. I was virtually certain our site said nothing of the sort, unless someone changed it without informing me. Why don't we check the site together, sir? I told him as I pulled it up and turned the monitor toward him. Sure enough, it was as I remembered. Sir, the site doesn't specify an airport shuttle. It only says local area shuttle. By now he seemed to be getting it, but his pride had been hurt. I could see him weighing his response. What's your name? He asked. Osprey, I said, purposely eyeing my name tag. I'm the guest experience director. Since I'll have to pick my wife up myself, and we'll both be late, can you at least have a bottle of champagne in my room when we get back? Normally, I hate giving away free shit like that to appease people who don't deserve it. But this time, I just didn't want to have to deal with him anymore, and I really didn't want to further upset a guy who requested a cult symbol on his bed. I think I can do that. What's your last name, sir? I asked out of habit, already typing in K-I-L-D. Wojciechowski? Sorry, what? I asked, bumbling. W-O-J-C-I-E-C-H. His reservation came up after the first few letters. Yes, I'm sorry. I found it, sir. I'll make sure chilled champagne is waiting in your room when you get back. Is there anything else I can help you with? He stood there, angrily fidgeting. No, You've been very helpful, Aubrey. Then he walked toward the main exit. So, I was wrong. He was definitely not Mr. Kilday. Kat smirked and side-eyed me with an approving nod. But then, halfway to the exit, Mr. Wojciechowski did a 180 and practically stormed back to the desk. Actually, no, he started, audibly angry from feeling embarrassed. The whole reason I booked this hotel was because your site said you had an airport shuttle. I don't care what it says now. I travel all over the world, and when it says hotel shuttle, that's what it means. It said nothing about a renovation either. It actually did mention the ongoing renovation at the top of the homepage, but he didn't need to hear that right now. I stood there deadpanning him while his skin reddened. You're going to upgrade me to a presidential suite and pay for a cab or Uber for my wife. I numbed myself for what I had to say next. I'm sorry, but we don't have any more presidential suites available right now due to the renovation. He started yelling at me, but I didn't even hear him. There was something standing outside the window across the lobby that siphoned my attention and scared the life out of me. It looked like the tall body shape of a man, so tall that its head was cut off by the top of the window, and it was a deep red, like the color of raw muscle tissue stripped of its flesh. The air buzzed like static, and I felt the hairs on my forearms bend over backwards. I involuntarily tilted my head, and my mouth slowly parted. At first, the thing was still. Then it moved, walking the length of the floor-to-ceiling window until it disappeared behind the wall. I made a mental note of the time I saw it. 5:20 p.m. Mr. Wojciechowski snapped me out of it. I'm a Diamond member. You don't even want to know who I know. You're going to lose your job. He pointed at me. And you're going to lose your job. He pointed at a bewildered Kat, who'd done nothing. You can leave any feedback you like on the email survey you'll receive after your stay, I told him, collecting myself after whatever the hell I had just seen outside. Denied the reaction he wanted, he finally turned around and left for real. Thanks, said Kat. I haven't dealt with a guy that mad before. Don't worry about it. And we're not going to lose our jobs. This is the third time someone has threatened me with that. You don't think he knows people high up? She asked. Doubt it. I paused, debating whether or not to ask her about what I saw. Hey, Kat, did you happen to look out the front window while he was yelling at us? No. Why? Part of me was glad she hadn't. No reason. Just thought I saw something. I took out my phone. One more thing. You don't happen to know what this symbol is, do you? I showed her the pic I took of the rose petals on the bed. She giggled. You actually made that? Yeah. She looked closer. I pulled up the reference image from the email. Kat thought about it. It looks kind of demon-y, demonic. You think so? I asked, still dwelling on that tall figure from the window. Even though I was settling into the idea, I'd imagined it. You should ask Neil. He's into things like that. He's a flat earther, not a pagan, I said. Neil was another front desk agent. He believed some weird stuff, so I could certainly ask him, but he had that day and the next off, so I wouldn't see him right away. I started for the door to the office. Amisha's back there, Kat said. What does she want? I don't know, but she's looking for you. Fuck. I put my head down and walked through the door. Amisha, hey, I said, sounding upbeat, lifting my head and putting on a congenial expression. Sitting in my chair was Amisha Patani, our 4'11" resort operations director, clad in her latest pantsuit from White House Black Market. She was my direct boss, reporting only to our GM, who was seldom around during the renovation. I'm about to make a coffee run, she started in her surprisingly deep voice. Do you want anything? I'm actually a huge caffeine addict, but I didn't want her thinking I owed her any favors. Thanks, but no, I'm fine for now. I walked past her, pretending to look at the whiteboard where we put relevant information for the day. Maybe if I stood there long enough, she'd leave. Osprey, sit down a minute. Shit. Here, have your chair back. Amisha stood up and swiveled it toward me. I sat down, meaning I was now forced to look up at her. Why is there someone blocked into the presidential 4180? She asked. Is this about the black case? She ignored my question. It's due to be closed. It hasn't been renovated. Kilday's a Diamond member. I thought since he booked it months ago and we're remodeling the suites last. It's fine. We take care of our elites here. I'm not mad. She just stood there, staring at me, not blinking. Then she suddenly smiled, without any noticeable wrinkling around her eyes. Oh, since we're both here, I wanted to discuss the staff schedule with you. I already knew where this was going. What about it? I asked anyway. I don't want you scheduling the front desk agents 5 days a week right now. We can still cover the desk with one agent per shift if we give them all 3 days. And Kat is lowest in seniority. Give her 2. I'm not even giving them 5 days now. You already had me cut the ones you didn't furlough down to 4. It's still too many. We don't want the animals running the zoo. Amisha was a numbers-obsessed bean counter in the truest sense of the word. She acted like everyone's friend, but we were all really just cells on a spreadsheet to her. I tried to stay diplomatic. They can't even take breaks with staffing like that. There has to be at least some scheduling overlap. But you'll be here. Think of yourself as the zookeeper. And look, our goal is to be a much leaner operation after the renovation. It will take some reframing of our expectations, but we're all going to be really happy with the results. And how much will our service quality suffer? I asked. You ask great questions, Osprey. I'm really proud of how you've grown into your role here, she responded in one of her all-time non-answers. Frustrated, I looked away from her and up at the monitor, showing a security camera feed of the lobby. My stomach rose into my chest. I could once again see the tall, raw-muscled figure, its head out of frame, now standing in front of an unaware cat at the front desk. I felt the air buzzing again. Amisha walked behind me and started rubbing my shoulders. I'm going to New York for a week for a wedding. While I'm gone, I need you to inventory everything in the hotel that needs rebranding with the new logo after the renovation. Signage, merchandise, pens. Can you do that for me, Ospie? Sure thing, Misha, I said, not even trying to hide my lack of enthusiasm. I was distracted, still watching the eerie figure on the monitor. I didn't want Amisha to know. You're taking the whole week off? I asked, clearing my throat and looking away. She pressed her fingers harder into my shoulders. It's an Indian wedding, so there will be nearly 1,000 people there, a lot of prominent, influential people, the co-founders of an aerospace firm, a neuroscientist who's been profiled in The Atlantic, and I run a 504-room resort. A real who's who, huh? I added with dryness I knew would be lost on her. I looked back at the monitor. The eerie figure was gone. She walked back around so I could see her. Sure you don't want coffee? Yep. Wait one sec. Do you know anything about the black case in 4180? She had already stopped paying attention. She checked her phone and typed for a few seconds, then went out the door. I walked back out behind the front desk with Kat. Amisha passed by in the lobby. Hi, Kat. Hey, I'm making a coffee run from the hotel market. Want anything? Espresso? Rockstar? Core power shake? It's on me. Kat perked up a little. Oh, Rockstar. Hey, Kat, Amisha said, winking and pointing. You're my rockstar. I can't tell if she's nice or not, said Kat, once Amisha was out of earshot. I sighed. No one hits the corporate Kool-Aid harder. Think she goes home and has IVs of it hooked into her veins? Kat joked. The Kool-Aid? I laughed. Wouldn't shock me. Night came and Amisha finally left, but I still had yet to see Mr. Kilday. Kat's shift ended, but our overnight front desk agent called out sick. I saw Instagram stories of him at a music festival the day before, but whatever. So that left me to cover the front desk all night myself. Looked like it was going to be a 19-hour day for me. It was 3 minutes before 11 when the lobby music and air conditioning cut out, both inexplicably at the same time. The lone engineer working that day had already gone home, so this was absolutely the last thing I needed to deal with. Then the big, floor-to-ceiling, glass lobby doors swung open, and a very different sort of man entered. He wasn't tall, only a couple inches taller than me if I wasn't wearing heels, kind of heavy, and had a goatee and short, brown hair styled into a faux hawk. He was probably in his late 30s, with a face that bore the worried look of a night owl who still hadn't outgrown the frat guy lifestyle. His black polo and gray slacks looked expensive, though I couldn't guess where they were from. Cameron, our late shift bellman, came in through a service door, pushing a big suitcase and a travel bag for a set of golf clubs on a bell cart. The man with the faux hawk stopped him. Thanks, brah. I'll take 'em from here, he said, handing him a cash tip and hoisting his own bags off the cart. I couldn't see how much he tipped, but from Cameron's expression, it must have been good. Then the man rolled his 2 bags up to me at the front desk. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the resort. How can I help you? I asked. He smiled big. He was slightly sweaty, and his eyes were glassy from what must have been several beers over 18 holes. Hey, checking in. Last name is Kilday, Kilday. I pulled up his reservation. Glad to have you with us, Mr. Kilday. I'd like to thank you for your loyalty and Diamond member status. I just need to see a photo ID and credit card, please. He already had them waiting for me. The Arizona ID read Brandon Alistair Kilday, and going by his date of birth, he was 37. My eyes went a little wide at the credit card. A J.P. Morgan Reserve, a solid metal card that was one of the most exclusive on the planet. I saw more American Express black cards than I saw of those. Thank you. We have you staying with us in a presidential suite for 3 nights? I asked. Sounds right. Hey, is your bar still open? Yes, for another hour. Nice, he said, grinning and clicking the roof of his mouth. I tapped the card to link it to his reservation and handed it back to him. When both our hands were on the card, I suddenly felt this amazing warmth radiating from him. It struck me that if he was maybe 50 pounds lighter and had less of a late-aughts haircut, I might really be attracted to him. Congratulations on your anniversary, I said, looking toward the entrance to see if anyone else was with him. I received your request regarding the room. Everything has been taken care of. You're the best, he said, but my partner isn't here yet. I might be flying solo tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, I replied. I noticed he didn't have a wedding ring on. Don't be, he said, quickly smiling. I've wanted to stay here for forever. Great. Sorry about the renovation. Everything probably isn't the way you imagined it, but your shipping case arrived ahead of you. We brought it up to your room. What case? He asked, confused. Oh, maybe there's been a mistake. Now I was confused. Cameron, I called out to the bellman. He hurried over. Can you please take the black case out of 4,180? If it's too heavy, let me know, and I'll have security get the pallet jack. Sure, be right back, Cameron replied, and went to grab a bell cart. I apologize, Mr. Kilday. I'm sure you're anxious to get to your room. It's all good, girl. I was going to chill at the bar for a bit anyway. Great. Well, here are your 2 room keys with a QR code explaining your diamond benefits. Shall I have your bags taken up once the bellman returns? Nah, I'll keep 'em with me, he said. Which way is the bar? Just past the elevators to your left. Thank you very much. His eyes looked down from mine. Osprey. He walked away, grinning and looking back at me once. Was he checking me out? I wondered about the black case. If it wasn't Kilday's, then whose was it? I was also curious about Brandon Kilday himself. He didn't look like a cult member or someone who'd want a creepy symbol on his bed. He wasn't wearing a wedding ring and very clearly said partner instead of wife. Was he gay? But what if he really had been checking me out? Maybe he was bi. It didn't matter. But then where was his partner? Why would he or she miss their anniversary? And after spending so much money, why didn't Kilday seem particularly bummed out about it? Too many questions. Cameron came back down with an empty bell cart a few minutes later. Are you sure that was the right room? There's no black case inside. What do you mean? I asked. Go look. It's not there. I went up to the 4th floor and let myself into 4,180. Sure enough, the case was gone. I walked into the bedroom. To my relief, the rose petals in the shape of the symbol were still there. Still, I had no clue what had happened to the case. Whatever. I was tired. I figured I could deal with it the next day. I went back down to the lobby bar. Kilday was at the bar counter, starting on a Bloody Mary. Thanks for your patience, Mr. Kilday. Your room is ready now, I said. He looked up from his phone. Bad news. My partner might not be able to make it. I'm so sorry. Are they sure? Can't say. I'll know as soon as my partner does. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to make your stay better. He swiveled on the seat and the corners of his mouth curled. Actually, there is. You seem like a cool chick. I got some stuff booked. Dinner tomorrow, a spa treatment the day after, and then a beach bonfire that night. I was hoping that, wondering if, maybe you could, join me instead. It caught me off guard. He didn't say it like he was nervous. He said it like he was trying to make it sound palatable to me, to convey it was non-threatening. My impulse was to say yes, but with Amisha and the GM gone, I alone was in charge of the resort. Granted, much of it was shut down, and there weren't many guests, but I knew I should keep it professional. Wow, I'm flattered, but I don't know. You don't have a day off or something coming up? I wish. That came out unexpectedly. He could take it as me leading him on. I know you're at work and all, he continued, but who's gonna care? There was a certain sparkle in his eye that sealed it. Any resistance I had to the idea suddenly went away. I could talk my way out of it if any staff took issue with it. And like he said, who was really going to care anyhow? I saw how the bartender wasn't even paying attention. This would be easy. Okay, you're on, Mr. Kilday. The instant I said it, the air conditioning and lobby music kicked back on. I had entirely forgotten about them. It was a little strange. Kilday looked up and around, then back at me. All right, girl, rad, he said, almost beaming. I should get back to my office. I have payroll and receipts to run, I said. backing away, still holding eye contact with him. He happily held up his Bloody Mary. "Don't let me keep you. I'm doing just fine right here." "Have a good night, Mr. Kilday." I couldn't stop myself from grinning as I turned and walked away. But had I known then what I know now, not only would I have turned him down, but I would have called security, the police, hell, even the church, and told them to get me as far away from that hotel as possible. I finally left work in the early morning while it was still dark. The roads were quiet on the way home at first, but strange things began to happen as I neared my apartment complex. I saw a red-colored, long-fingered hand wrap around the edge of a roadside construction sign. Then I saw what looked like a pair of long, mangled legs that were the same raw muscle color standing beneath another sign. I looked back in my side mirror at where the sign was and spotted what looked like two illuminated eyes in the darkness. They glowed like a cat's, but were red-orange in color. I began to shiver despite the car's climate control being set to 70 degrees. I told myself that I was only a few miles from home and that it was just the stress and strangeness of my workday getting to me. Those thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, awful stench coming in through the vent. The air in my car reeked of sweat, sulfur, and animal feces. I gagged and opened the windows, which only made the stench worse. Skunks were rare around where I lived, but I knew even running over one of them couldn't produce a sickening odor like this. The stench so preoccupied me that I failed to notice a traffic light turn red. I slammed on the brakes and stopped inches from the bumper of a black SUV in front of me. I knew I wasn't paying close attention to the road, but I swore the light had gone straight from green to red. I tapped my nails on the steering wheel and dashboard, waiting for the light to change back to green. But it didn't. My car and the SUV just sat there, far longer than a red light would normally keep us. Then I noticed something. A shape was drawn in the layer of dust on the SUV's rear window. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. It was the same symbol I had made with rose petals on the bed in Kilday's suite. 2 concentric rings around 3 arches and crosses over a pair of horizontal lines and 6 triangles. My hands locked up around the steering wheel. There was no way seeing the shape again now was a coincidence. Still, my rational side told me the SUV must have belonged to someone at work. Maybe Cameron the bellman, or a housekeeper who went into the suite, or someone else who got Julio's email. The light never turned green, and the black SUV never moved. I slowly backed up and went around the SUV and through the intersection while it stayed red. I was too afraid to beep the horn. I let myself into my apartment and didn't even take off my makeup before plopping down onto my bed. I went right to sleep. Then, sometime later, I'm not sure how long, my eyes snapped open. I heard scratching on the floor. I sat up. It was still dark. Across the bedroom sat a large Rottweiler. I was startled and turned on the bedside lamp. "Moose?" I asked, confused. I don't own a dog, but one of my neighbors in the building, my friend Tony, had a standoffish old Rottweiler named Moose. Tony was more of a friend of convenience than genuine-like, but we trusted each other, and I had dog sat for her in the past. I thought maybe I had forgotten to lock the door when I came in, and she had to leave unexpectedly for some reason, and simply put Moose in my apartment when she realized it was open. I wouldn't have put it past her. I said Moose's name again, but the old dog just sat there staring at me. It didn't matter. Moose and I had a whole understanding. He wouldn't do anything to hurt me. I laid back down and turned off the light, but in the corner of my eye, Moose changed. I no longer saw a dog, but a towering black silhouette. I sat right back up and looked at it, but it once again looked like Moose. I sighed. I needed to stop freaking myself out. I laid back down, and in the corner of it changed to the tall silhouette again. I leaped out of bed and switched on the lamp, but the bulb flashed and burnt out. Moose was back again, and the tall silhouette was gone. I carefully got back onto the bed and inched toward the edge of it. "Is that you, Moose?" I asked, still feeling scared, but also a bit silly. Moose yawned and shook. "Okay, boy," I said, laying back down. But it happened again. In my peripheral vision, I saw a black silhouette in the rough shape of a man with unnaturally long limbs and a head that seemed to blend into the shadows on the ceiling. But when I looked straight at it, it was Moose. Moose started to walk, coming closer to the bed until he disappeared behind the edge of it. Now I was terrified. I didn't want to open my eyes. I wanted to will myself to sleep and hope I forgot the whole thing when I woke up. It worked for a moment, but then I felt cold. I opened my eyes and saw the bedsheet had been pulled off of me and now shrouded the shape of a large dog sitting on the foot of my bed. Now I tried to move, but I couldn't. I'd never experienced sleep paralysis before, but I knew this was it. I could only move my eyes. I closed them, and once they reopened, the shape under the sheet was that of an extremely tall human figure hunched over me with its shoulders against the ceiling. I looked down and saw its bare feet beneath the sheet. They were the same deep red, raw muscle color and had gaping holes where it looked like toes had been ripped off. I tried to scream, but couldn't. The shape under the sheet bent over closer and closer until the sheet collapsed onto me, smothering me. I could move again, and I thrashed and kicked under the bedsheet. I rolled off the bed onto the floor and scrambled out from underneath. The light came back on, and the tall silhouette and Moose were nowhere in sight. I checked the front door, and it was locked. I looked at my phone and saw I had only a few hours until I needed to be back at work. I laid down on the couch after that. I would see Mr. Kilday at the hotel and get answers. At least I hoped I would.